My House of Horrors Chapter 681 to 690. The fog thinned, and the blood moon in the sky became clearer. The blood-red moonlight fell on the ground, shining on many ugly and strange figures. Pa! The window next to Chen Ge was slammed open by an external force, and a strange man whose face was wrapped in coarse cloth poked his head out. He had his eyes on Chen Ge, and he was waiting for Chen Ge to get close to ambush him. There was no reason for him to attack. Perhaps he found Chen Ge an eyesore, or killing Chen Ge would bring him temporary joy. This was the logic of a crazed murderer. Their brain structure was different from a normal person. They did not care about others, did not care about the consequences, and did not have a plan. They were sensitive and easily provoked, and they had a natural sense of aggression. Blood seeped out from under the coarse cloth. Chen Ge could not see the man's face, and he did not care what the man looked like. When the man reached out his hairy arms toward Chen Ge, trying to drag him into the room, Chen Ge took a step to the side and raised the hammer. This kind of murder weapon was rare even in Liwan City. The shadow kept these murderers in captivity to gain negative emotions, not to build a coliseum. Therefore, the weapons that these murderers used to commit their crimes were tools that could be found anywhere in their daily lives. The man's shoulders caved in, and the coarse cloth that covered his face fell to the ground, revealing a pair of eyes that were filled with confusion. He had no idea where Chen Ge had gotten such a hammer. He felt like the man was breaking the rules, but he could not do anything about it. The man fell backward, and the man ran toward the room that he was hiding in. Normally, when a person was being chased, they would not pay attention to these small fries, but Chen Ge was obviously an exception. I don't care if you're a ghost or a human. If you want to kill me, then you should be prepared to be taken away by me. That's what I call fair. He leapt into the room through the window, raised the hammer, and chased after her. You're planning to kill me, so you're definitely not an innocent person. Even if I save you, I won't get the reward from the black phone. If anything, I'll disturb the peace of society, so I'd better spend more time to kill you. Rushing into the house, there was a commotion. An ordinary wooden door was a piece of cake for Chen Ge. Even if it was a security door, he was confident that he could break it open within 5 strikes. The masked man had never seen such a scene before. Before he could escape from the room, Chen Ge had already caught up to him. Entering through the window on the left side of the building and smashing through the window on the right side of the building, the whole process did not take more than half a minute. Holding the coarse cloth that he had removed from the man's face, Chen Ge shoved it inside his backpack. I guess I'll keep this as a souvenir. In Xiao Bu's game, the streets would become very dangerous after dark, similar to Chen Ge's current situation. The only difference was that the main character in the game was the defenseless Xiao Bu, but in real life, the main character was the new chairperson of the Society of Strange Tales. I have no idea what Dr. Gao's goal is, but that is a big problem. For now, I can only try my best to exhaust them. Chen Ge's route did not follow any pattern. If someone or a ghost provoked him, he would immediately change his route and charge into the building before moving to another street. Most of the buildings in Liwan City were hiding specters and crazed murderers. For a normal person, this was a place that sounded dangerous, but for Chen Ge, it gave him a special thrill that was similar to a lucky draw. Whenever he entered a room, there would be a sense of anticipation in his heart. He could not explain why, perhaps he was just curious. It feels like I'm a street sweeper. If only the door that has gone out of control doesn't expand on its own. That way, I'll be able to come and clean it periodically. The blood moon shone, and the fog swirled. Chen Ge ran under the many malicious gazes. The human-shaped shadows at the junction are still there. The man with the tattoo said that these shadows came from the shadow's main body, so they probably have some kind of connection with the shadow. Chen Ge knew that the reason he could wreak havoc and snatch the baleful specters as he pleased was because the shadow was busy dealing with Dr. Gao and did not have time to spare. If he knew that Chen Ge was the key, the situation would definitely change. As long as I'm careful, I should be able to stall for a long time. Chen Ge raised the hammer and smashed it at the window. Wherever there was a human-shaped shadow, he would walk through the building. With the hammer, wherever Chen Ge went, there would be a path. From a certain perspective, the blood fog was a symbol of the shadow's power. Now that the fog was thin, and the strange noises kept coming, many of the imprisoned ghosts and murderers realized that their chance had arrived. Initially, the strange noises only came from behind Chen Ge, but slowly, screams and wails came from all over Liwan City. Order collapsed, and Liwan City, which the shadow had worked so hard to manage, fell into chaos. The madmen who had been suppressed for a long time crawled out from their hiding places. Be it to escape or to release the darkness in their hearts, these ghosts and madmen who represented the bottom line of humanity started to make their move. If the shadow was not held back by Dr. Gao, he could make an example out of them. He could kill those who disobeyed him and suppress them by force. But now, he was too busy, and the more he did not make a move, the more chaotic the situation would become. The fear and respect in the hearts of these madmen would disappear, and they would be swallowed by their negative emotions. Crying and laughter floated above the small town. The sound of fighting was everywhere. The blood fog was still thinning, but the smell of blood in the air was getting heavier. This is a bunch of madmen. This is too scary. Chen Ge stepped over the fainted murderer, and at the same time, Shuyan crumpled the lingering spirit that he had fought earlier into a ball and put it away. The man and ghost had a clear division of labor. Chen Ge was responsible for dealing with the living humans, and Shu Yin was responsible for dealing with the lingering spirits and specters. Unless they ran into a red specter, basically no one would be able to stop them. In just a few minutes, Chen Ge's backpack had gained many strange things. For example, a showerhead that had been pulled off. It was attached to a man's lingering spirit. He liked to peek at other people when they were showering. He had no combat ability, but he looked scary. Chen Ge felt like he had the potential for his job, so he kept it. Other than that, there were many other things, like a flashlight that could turn on its own, a spirit that hid under a glass, a female ghost that liked to hide under a table, and so on. Those that were easy to take away, Chen Ge would take them with him. Those that were not easy to take away, like the female ghost that liked to hide under the table, Chen Ge smashed the table and had the female ghost possess one of the wooden boards. He promised the female ghost that he would get her a new table in the future. The reward from this mission was more than Chen Ge expected. He opened the black phone, and there were several new messages on his employee page. Congratulations, Spectre's favored, congratulations on obtaining a special type of lingering spirit. Li Gui, lingering spirit. Lust is like a knife. When she tried to install a camera in the shower, she was electrocuted to death. Her special power is bad luck. She can affect the luck of herself and those around her. Would you like to hire her as your employee? Congratulations, Spectre's favored, congratulations on obtaining a special type of lingering spirit. Hebebe, lingering spirit. She was hit in the head by a falling glass in the residential area and died. She was filled with resentment, but she could not find her killer, so she could only hide under the glass. When someone drank from her, she would observe them from under the blanket. Her special power is X-ray vision. Would you like to hire her as your employee? Congratulations, Spectre's favored, congratulations on obtaining a special type of specter, Wang Mei, baleful spirit. She suffered from a mental illness, and the smaller the space, the safer she felt. The cause of her death was a mystery. The police found her body inside a wooden box under the table. No one knew how she got into the box, and no one else's fingerprints were found at the scene. Her special power is shapeshifting. Would you like to hire her as your employee? Congratulations, Spectre's favored. Congratulations on obtaining a red spectre, heavily injured, on the verge of dissipation. Real name unknown. Power unknown, past unknown. Before completing her spirit, you cannot hire her as your employee. Chen Ge glanced at the employee page. He had gained quite a lot from this mission. He glanced through it, and there were 3 lingering spirits with special powers and a headless female spectre at the level of a red spectre. I should consider hiring them after completing the mission. For a team to grow, it was not enough to focus on quantity alone. Quality was more important. Putting the black phone away, Chen Ge looked around. Liwan City was a complete mess. The shadow probably could not figure out what the problem was no matter how hard he tried. Dr. Gao's appearance was a variable. No matter how smart the shadow was, he would not have expected Dr. Gao to turn into a red spectre and appear at a time like this. Information decided the direction of one's thinking. The shadow had crossed swords with Dr. Gao before. He was a master of psychological warfare, and coincidentally, Dr. Gao was the top psychologist in Zhujiang. Even though he had barely won the battle earlier, Dr. Gao had left a deep impression on him, and he was very wary of this person. 3/4 of the blood fog in Liwan City had gathered at one spot. Black and red chains slid through it, leaving deep marks on the surrounding buildings. Behind the shadow is a 4-star scenario, so he definitely has other trump cards that he has not used. I wonder how far Dr. Gao can push him. Chen Ge paid close attention to the battle between Dr. Gao and the shadow. At that moment, a loud explosion came from the residential area where Fan Chong lived. He could clearly see that the blood vessels on the surface of one of the buildings had started to fade. Who did this? Their target appears to be the door that has gone out of control as well. Chen Ge was surprised. Other than himself, Dr. Gao, and the shadow, there was a 4th force in Liwan City. Is it the red raincoat? Or the cooperation of those crazed murderers? The door that had gone out of control was the source of all the blood fog in Liwan City. The shadow would not allow anyone to touch that door. A strange voice came from the chains and the blood fog. It sounded like it was calling one name after another. Is the shadow going to use his second trump card? Chen Ge was on high alert. He soon realized that something was wrong. After the voice appeared, human-shaped stains started to appear on the buildings in Liwan City. They appeared to be the real owners of these buildings. This is similar to the stains I saw at Fan Kong's residential area. Is the shadow trying to wake up all the people who have died in Liwan City? All the murderers and most of the baleful specters were brought here from elsewhere by the shadow. The human-shaped stains were the real natives of Liwan City. They had died of infectious diseases and were buried deep under the city. Creak, 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 something seemed to be moving on the wall behind him. Chen Ge turned to look, and there was a human-shaped stain behind him. It was a little girl. She looked about 7 or 8. Her body was thin, and her hair was tied into 2 ponytails. Initially, it was just a shallow shadow, but as time moved on, the stain slowly deepened until the girl's silhouette could be seen clearly. Her body was twisted and curled into a ball. As if to lessen the pain, her arms hugged her body so tightly that her bones were bent out of shape. Creak, creak, creak. The creepy voice kept coming. Each time it started, the stain on the wall would become clearer, like it was trying to break free from the wall. The recorder kept buzzing, and the white cat inside the travel bag kept meowing at Chen Ge. They were both reminding Chen Ge to stay away from this girl. Why doesn't Shu Yin allow me to get close to her? The girl's presence was far weaker than a red specter's. In fact, she was weaker than a slightly stronger baleful specter, but a stain like this attracted the attention of both Shu Yin and the white cat. The color of the stain continued to deepen. Perhaps it was his imagination, but Chen Ge saw the girl's curled-up body shudder. Then the girl's head that was buried deep in her chest slowly raised to turn toward Chen Ge. It was a face that had nothing on it, but being stared at by the long face, Chen Ge felt chills all over his body, and his hair stood on end. Ever since he was blessed by the baleful specter, Chen Ge's body temperature had started to drop. He had not felt this kind of bone-chilling coldness for a long time already. This thing doesn't appear to be a ghost. Chen Ge's own definition of a ghost was a lingering spirit left behind by a living person. There were good and bad obsessions, so ghosts were divided into good and evil. However, this human-shaped stain in front of him had no emotions. It was filled with a morbid desire to destroy. Rather than calling it a ghost, it was more accurate to call it a living curse. Its existence seemed to be to spread misfortune and misfortune, to turn everything into something like it. The stain in the wall saw Chen Ge. The girl's curled-up body slowly unfurled. The deformed limbs stretched outward, and it walked out from the wall. The featureless face turned to face Chen Ge. The girl moved forward, moving faster and faster until she suddenly picked up speed and leapt at him. At the same time, endless screams echoed in Liwan City. The shadow did not only target Chen Ge, the murderers and baleful specters were also the target of the human-shaped stain. Let's retreat for now. Chen Ge had no idea what would happen if he was touched by this thing. He did not have Shu Yin and Bai Cholan make a move. He actively evaded and planned to observe the situation. There were screams and wails everywhere. This was a big purge. The shadow was very decisive at this crucial moment. He would rather kill 1,000 innocents than let one go. After Chen Ge ran out from the building, he soon realized the severity of the situation. The street, the walls, and the surrounding buildings were filled with human-shaped stains. They attacked everything in sight, be it a living person or a baleful specter. As long as they were discovered, they would not rest until they were dead. Get lost. The window of one of the houses to Chen Ge's left was pushed open. Through the anti-theft net, Chen Ge saw a man in pants holding a table lamp and slamming it into the corner of the room. The door was pushed open silently, and the stain that radiated danger entered the room. It was an old man. He had a hunched back, and his featureless face faced the man. He used a speed that did not match his body to charge at the man by the window. F***CK. Don't come any closer. The man grabbed the ashtray from the window and threw it at the old man, but the glass ashtray passed right through the old man's body. The old man did not slow down at all. The fear in his eyes was overflowing. He threw everything that he could grab at the old man, but it did not stop the old man at all. It was not easy for me to steal this house from a few other madmen. The man had seen many strange things and experienced many unbelievable things during his time in Liwan City, but he had survived all of them. He was a madman, and he had been sent to the mental hospital several times by his family. He believed in the existence of God, but different from the other believers, he stubbornly believed that he was God. No matter how much he hurt himself, he could not really die. That was the proof. F***CK it. Old man, you're seeking death. The window was installed with anti-theft nets, so the man could not leave. The house that had given him a sense of security had become a cage that limited his escape. The man picked up the chair next to him and aimed it at the human stain's head and smashed it. Hitting the head was the most effective way to unleash the power of a blunt weapon, but to the man's surprise, when the chair landed on the stain's head, it felt like it had landed on a puddle of liquid. The chair passed through the stain, and the man quickly let go, but by then, the old man had already run to his side. The man ran to the bedside. He saw Chen Ge outside the security net and shouted for help, but it was too late. The human-shaped stain crawled up his body, stuck to his back, and slowly melted into his body. The man's skin turned gray at a speed visible to the naked eye. His hands that gripped the anti-theft net loosened weakly, and another face slowly appeared on his face. It was full of wrinkles, and the skin was dry. The two faces overlapped. Perhaps due to the pain, the man had lost his mind. He crawled toward the right side of the security net where there was a small gap. This was probably the escape route that he had left for himself. If one did not pay attention, it would be hard to notice. He did not wear a coat, probably because he was worried that his coat might get caught in the security net during his escape. "Save me, save me." The man's expression was twisted. Something seemed to have drilled into the bloody light, bulging on his skin before bursting open one by one. Grayish-black blood flowed out of the man's lifeless body. The blood was filled with black and gray granules. Several seconds later, the granules gathered together and crawled out from behind the man. The scene before Chen Ge's eyes was incredibly strange. The old man appeared to have gained a new life from this victim. Chen Ge sensed a second emotion from the man, the joy of revenge. The man's body was stuck in the middle of the security net. The scariest thing was that after the body fell, a small stain appeared at the spot where he died. This stain had not taken shape yet, but Chen Ge had a feeling that if he did not stop it, in a few years there would be another human-shaped stain on the windowsill. The people who are killed by the stain will turn into the stain as well. This thing is like a contagious disease. The man's death was horrifying, and Chen Ge was even more unwilling to fight these things. The shadow's trump card sure is scary. After he finishes his cleaning, the number of human-shaped stains in Liwan City will only increase. Creak, creak, creak. A strange sound came from behind him. The faceless girl was still following behind Chen Ge. The old man in the room also noticed Chen Ge and chased after him. This thing has to have a weakness, but I don't have the time to look for it. Chen Ge wanted to shake off the girl and the old man, but he realized that there were more human-shaped stains ahead of him. This is not good. Chen Ge used his yin-yang vision to look ahead. The human stains inside all the buildings in Liwan City were slowly waking up. Many murderers were chased onto the road, and most of them ran in two different directions. One was the direction where Dr. Gao and the shadow had fought. There were many stains on that road, but it was blocked by the blood fog and chains, so they were temporarily unable to enter. The other road led to a place that Chen Ge did not know. To not expose himself, he followed behind and mixed in with the group of murderers. Those who could survive in Liwan City, no matter how powerful they were, at least they could run fast. When being chased by ghosts, only by running faster than others would they have a higher chance of survival. Liwan City was not that big. With the stains chasing after them, the group soon ran through half of Liwan City. They finally stopped before an old residential building. The architectural style was the same as it was many years ago, and there was a sliding elevator installed inside. This kind of elevator was rarely installed inside a residential building, it was mostly used to transport goods. Get out of the way. The elevator could only accommodate a limited number of people, so the earlier they got in, the better. When their lives were threatened, these murderers revealed their true nature. There was no teamwork in their eyes, and they never considered a win-win situation, they only wanted to survive alone. The building had 9 floors in total, and this was already a very tall building in Liwan City. Chen Ge scanned it with his yin-yang vision, and he also noticed the strangeness of this building. The other buildings had stains, but this building was dead silent. There were no stains, no ghosts, and there did not seem to be any signs of life. How come I feel like this building is scarier than those stains? The murderer who ran at the front had already rushed into the elevator. He pressed the button very decisively, wishing that the elevator door would close immediately. Bang! The people at the back noticed that the man was planning to take the elevator to leave alone, so they hurled the weapons in their hands at the elevator. The doors of the old elevator were hollow, and the speed was very slow. The result was that no one would be able to take the elevator to leave. "I'll take the stairs." Chen Ge had no interest in these murderers. They did not even have the value of becoming his employees. Instead of fighting with them, he might as well go in and take a look himself. When he reached the stairs, before Chen Ge even entered, when he raised his head to look, he froze where he was like he had been electrocuted. Next to the only staircase of the building, there was a poster of New Century Park. The poster was yellowed, and a large part of it was missing, but Chen Ge could still recognize it at first glance because his haunted house was in the middle of the poster. Many years ago, when the park first opened, Chen Ge's haunted house was the attraction of the park. At the time, information did not travel as fast as it did now, so the park had distributed its advertisements and posters to various places in Zhejiang. The visitors who came to visit the park would also be given a beautifully made poster for free. If it was just the poster, Chen Ge would not have been so excited. At most, he would have been surprised, but he was reminded of something. On the way there, he had received a call from Fan Kong. On the phone, Fan Kong had said clearly that he had cleared Xiao Bu's game. The last scene of the game was Xiao Bu entering a building, and the wall of the building had a poster of New Century Park. Finally found it. When Chen Ge had been wandering around Liwan City, he had been looking for this place, but he had not found it. Now, he had finally gotten his wish. Xiao Bu is probably inside this building, and my parents might have left their message inside this building. At the underground morgue, after Chen Ge fought with Dr. Gao, who was barely controlling himself, had shown Chen Ge a picture. In the picture, Chen Ge's parents were together with a girl in a red dress, and the girl was Xiao Bu. Therefore, Chen Ge was certain that Xiao Bu knew about his parents, and they had communicated with each other. The more missions he unlocked, the more Chen Ge realized that the disappearance of his parents was not that simple. It was more complicated than he had imagined. Every time he thought he was close to the truth, a deeper darkness would be revealed. Reaching out to touch the edge of the poster, Chen Ge looked at the staircase. He summoned all the specters and took a few steps into the building. It's been sealed. Chen Ge had no idea whether it was the shadow's doing or the building itself had been sealed. The staircase was blocked by the bricks, and there was not a single gap left. Bang! Chen Ge used the hammer to smash at the wall. He realized that the wall was very thick, and it would take a long time to create a path. Looks like I'll have to use the elevator. Xiao Bu was probably hiding inside this building, and it was related to the ultimate secret of Liwan City and his missing parents. Chen Ge changed his usual friendliness. Holding the hammer, he led Xu Yin toward the elevator. If you dare to close the door, I'll break the safety lock that holds the elevator down. Standing 10 meters away, Chen Ge yelled. His voice was flat, and he did not use any special tone, but even so, the murderers quieted down. The building itself did not have any human-shaped stains, and the stains outside started to slow down when they got close to the building, but that was all. This building appeared to be the Shadow's second forbidden ground. He realized that after people hid inside the building, they started to make that strange noise like they were calling out names. Hearing his voice, the stains picked up speed and rushed toward the building. If the Shadow knows that Xiao Bu is hiding here, why hasn't he made a move to capture Xiao Bu directly? This is Liwan City, and this is his territory. The murderers squeezed together. Before Chen Ge arrived, they were already fighting each other due to the weight. No living person was willing to be tossed out, so they created several dead bodies. After Chen Ge entered, the elevator finally moved, and it started to descend slowly. Why is it going down? The murderer who stood next to the control panel gasped. I thought I pressed the button to go up. Don't panic. Perhaps there are people underground, and it wants to come up. The elevator was crowded, but even so, there was an empty space around Chen Ge. The building had 2 underground floors, and they were all rented out to outsiders who could not afford the rent. A few years ago, Zhejiang had planned to develop eastern Zhejiang, and everyone had high hopes for this place. They built factories and buildings, and it attracted a large number of migrant workers like Jia Ming. No one expected eastern Zhejiang to become like this in a few years. The elevator moved slowly, and strangely, the elevator that was used to transport goods stopped when it passed the first floor. There was no one outside, and the man next to the control panel pressed the button to go up several times. Moments later, the elevator door closed, but it still did not go up. It continued to descend until the door opened on the second floor. What's going on? The man next to the control panel pressed several buttons, but the elevator door refused to close. He tried for a long time before he suddenly screamed, "Why is the elevator showing that it's overweight?" The display for this kind of old-fashioned elevator was on the control panel. It was very small, and if one did not look closely, one would not be able to see the words at the bottom of the panel. Our number hasn't changed, so why is it suddenly overweight? Did someone get on the elevator earlier? The people in the elevator had all lived in Liwan City for a while, so they knew the various situations that they might run into here. The question before them now was whether to stay in the elevator or to leave. If they stayed in the elevator, the ghost would be beside them. If they left, there might be more ghosts in the second floor. Is there something wrong with the elevator? Why don't any of you go down and try? Someone suggested, but the suggestion was quickly rejected because no one was willing to leave. Compared to the darker underground, moving up was obviously a better choice, at least, that was how it looked. Dragging things on like this was not going to help. Chen Ge could not kill all the other murderers, and he was not in the mood to do so, so he walked out of the elevator. Strangely enough, after he left, the elevator returned to normal. What's the meaning of this? Can this elevator measure the weight of ghosts? Are they included in the calculation? Quote, seeing Chen Ge leave, the other murderers were afraid that he would change his mind, so they quickly pressed the button and prepared to run online. This time, the elevator door moved. When the door slowly closed, Chen Ge saw a few more figures standing in the elevator with their backs toward him. Good luck. Chen Ge ran down the second floor with the hammer. He discovered more and more strange things like the well-preserved theme park posters on the wall and some old handmade equipment. These things were all related to his haunted house. He ran until he reached the deepest part of the second floor, and Chen Ge stopped before one of the doors. This door was similar to the other doors, but there were many cigarette butts littering the ground before the door, and this brand was the favorite of Chen Ge's father. Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. The familiar smell of cigarette triggered Chen Ge's memory. He was not a sentimental person, but at that moment, he stopped moving. You abandoned me and ran to such a dangerous place on your own. Just how many things are you hiding from me? He knocked lightly on the door, but there was no response. Chen Ge whispered, "Is anyone there?" Just as he said that, a surprised voice came from behind the door. "Mr. Chen." The chain behind the door slid, and the spring sprang open. After a long time, this seemingly normal door was opened. Fan Kong, in his pajamas, stood behind the door. His face was streaked with tears. When this fat young man, who weighed more than 100 kilograms, saw Chen Ge, he rushed over to give Chen Ge a bear hug. Control yourself. Chen Ge took a step back. He could see that Fan Kong was very emotional. I knew you would come. Mr. Chen, I almost lost the chance to see you again. As Fan Kong said that, there was a trace of a sob in his voice. He had many things that he wanted to tell Chen Ge, but he did not know where to start. He paced around the room, and his fat stomach jiggled with the movement of his body. Calm down first. Do you have your phone with you? We spoke on the phone a few hours ago. Let me see your call history. Chen Ge was testing Fan Kong. When Fan Kong disappeared, he left his phone in the room. Later, Fan Dade used Fan Kong's phone to communicate with Chen Ge for a short time. It's not with me. I was in a hurry when I ran away, and I dropped it in the room. Fan Kong pointed at his extra-large pajamas. It did not have any pockets. Chen Ge nodded and looked into the room. This was a very normal rented room. There was a bed, a table, an electric fan, and there was nothing special about it. Why are you hiding in this place? Who brought you here? Chen Ge had always thought that Fan Kong had been kidnapped by the shadow, but from the looks of it, that didn't seem to be the case. Even I can't believe it when I say it out loud. Fan Kong moved his fat body away and walked to the window. Basement 2, what's the point of fixing a window? Are you lying to yourself? Chen Ge gripped the hammer and blocked the door. She brought me here. Fan Kong pulled open the thick curtains. The cement wall behind him had been painted with cheap watercolors. There were mountains, water, bright sunshine, flowers that would never wither, and smiling family members. Chen Ge's gaze followed the movement of the curtains and finally stopped at the side of the window frame. There was a little girl sitting there. Dressed in red, she stared blankly at the painting on the cement wall. Xiao Bu. This was not the first time Chen Ge had seen this girl, but each time, the girl gave him a different feeling. There was warning, coldness, and this time, helplessness. When we were on the phone, it was she who brought me away. Fan Kong's eyelids twitched like he was still afraid when he thought back to that scene. That night, it was not my brother who returned but someone else. I can't believe I did not notice it and stayed in the same room with him for so long. Your brother has been replaced by the shadow. Fan Kong's words matched Chen Ge's speculation. Did Xiao Bu tell you that? Yes, my brother did not return that night, and now I'm worried about him. Fan Kong sat on the bed, and the old bed creaked like it could collapse at any moment. Compared to his body size, the bed seemed to be even smaller. These beds are prepared for children, Fan Kong explained as he snuck a glance at Xiao Bu. He was also worried that he might collapse the bed. Prepared for children. Chen Ge keenly captured the keyword in Fan Kong's words. You told me on the phone that after the game was cleared, Xiao Bu entered this building. Is this building very special? It looks like the interior is no different from the other buildings in Liwan City. Quote. I also heard that from Xiao Bu. Many years ago, there was an epidemic in Liwan City, and this building was the only one that was avoided by the patients. The only one that was avoided. What do you mean? Chen Ge did not quite get it. It's a long story, but if you complete Xiao Bu's game, you'll understand everything. The game uses Liwan City as its background, and it recreates the real Liwan City at the time. Fan Kong had cleared all the side quests, so he was familiar with the game's plot. Human nature is a complicated thing. It can be like the sun, sacrificing itself to bring warmth to the weak, or it can be like the abyss, dark and bottomless. The source of the epidemic was Liwan Hospital. The hospital was helpless, and the few patients knew that they were not going to survive, so some of them started to take revenge. They placed their own blood and other things on the fruits and medical equipment, and soon, the epidemic spread. First it was the other patients, then the doctors, and then it spread to half of Liwan City. The disease is rampant, and people are in a state of panic. Many of those who were sick seem to have gone mad. Even though they did not directly kill anyone, innocent people died because of them. They are not that different from those homicidal maniacs. At the time, the whole of Liwan City was in chaos, but this building was different. Before the building was built, it was an orphanage. The developers thought that Eastern Zhejiang would develop quickly, so they bought the land and built a new building. At the time, they promised to build a new home for all the orphans and workers, and to preserve the existence of the orphanage. After the building was built, they found out that they used the first and second floor to house the orphans. After the outbreak, all the workers at the orphanage forbade the children from coming out, and they guarded the entrance that led underground. They had already made the decision to not let anyone in, including themselves. After one day and one night, the people from above came. No one knew the actual solution, and there was no information online. The game only said that all the orphans were rescued, and none of them were infected. At this point, Fan Kong's voice changed. To be honest, I have great respect for the workers at the orphanage. They can be said to be the only beauty in Liwan City. Humans were a very unique life form. Even in the dirtiest and ugliest environment, they could still bloom as a kind and beautiful flower. No wonder all the buildings have human-shaped stains except this one. Chen Ge had answered the first question, but then more questions popped up. But in the game, why would Xiao Bu enter this building in the end? Does it mean that she is a kind person? Quote, those who could open the door were in deep despair, and self-redemption was very difficult for them. You should have noticed the posters in the basement corridor, right? In the game, there was a side quest where a young couple entered Liwan City. They found Xiao Bu and turned this building into Xiao Bu's shelter. Fan Kong tried his best to remember the last few scenes of the game. They wanted to help Xiao Bu, but they demanded that Xiao Bu agree to one of their conditions. Condition: Chen Ge knew that the young couple that Fan Kong mentioned was his own parents. Smoking the familiar cigarette, carrying the haunted house posters everywhere, wishing that the whole world would come to visit the haunted house, only his own family would do something like that. Yes. Fan Kong turned back to look at Xiao Bu. Seeing that there was no reaction from Xiao Bu, he continued. They hoped that Xiao Bu could become their child's shadow. Tell me more. Chen Ge narrowed his eyes. You've seen the dialogue in the game before. It's hard to decipher. The general gist is that their child's shadow has been lost, so they hope that Xiao Bu can become their child's new shadow. I know it's hard to believe, but that's what the game says. In the game, Xiao Bu did not agree immediately, so they built a shelter in Liwan City. They said that if Xiao Bu made up her mind, he should enter the shelter to wait for them, and then they would help Xiao Bu deal with the shadow. Fan Kong had no idea how big of an impact his words had on Chen Ge. To make a red specter as a shadow, I can't believe they came up with something like that. Now that Xiao Bu had entered the shelter, it meant that she had agreed to become Chen Ge's shadow, but his own parents not only did not follow through on the promise, they made him go missing. This made Chen Ge unsure how to face Xiao Bu. Let's not think about it anymore. As long as I can kill the shadow, no matter who did it, I've fulfilled the promise. Entering the room, Chen Ge walked to the window. Xiao Bu looked like she was only 7 or 8. The blood-red dress was a stark contrast to her pale face. Just by getting close, Shu Yin gave off a strong warning. She looks very powerful. This was the first time that Chen Ge had seen a door that had gone out of control. He had no idea what kind of effect the door would have on the door pusher, but from the looks of it, after the door went out of control, the door pusher would become scarier. It was my parents who made the promise with you. I am the one who lost my shadow. Hearing that from Chen Ge, the girl, who had been spacing out, moved her lashes. She slowly turned around, and a pressure that made Chen Ge feel like he was suffocating came from before him. The red dress floated. Xiao Bu had no hands, and her heart was empty. This child is just like the door. Where the door was removed, other than the head being replaced with the heart, the other parts of the door correspond to her body. Quote, looking at her silently, no one would willingly give up their freedom. Chen Ge finally understood why Xiao Bu had escaped into the shelter. Resisting the pressure, Ignoring Xu Yin's warning, Chen Ge took another step forward. There was pain in his eyes. I'm not here because of the promise. You've been injured too much. I don't think I can experience even 1,000th of your pain, so I won't console you from the perspective of a bystander. I understand that consolation is futile. An eye for an eye. I will help you kill the shadow, and then you won't be alone anymore. Chen Ge stopped before Xiao Bu. He slowly squatted down and looked at the numb face. The scenery inside this window is a painting. After dealing with the shadow, I will take you out the door. We will go to all the places you want to go and see all the sceneries you want to see. Chen Ge did not bring up the promise again. He would not let Xiao Bu be his shadow. Perhaps sensing that Chen Ge was not lying, Xiao Bu blinked. Blood leaked out from the window, and the blood gathered to form a few words. People without a shadow do not live long. Are you sure you don't want me to be your shadow? Blood seeped out from the window, and it flowed on the hand-painted painting. It was very eye-catching. Even in the face of death, I will not take away your freedom. Furthermore, I have not seen my shadow for so many years, but haven't I lived a good life? There will always be a way, and there will be a solution. Chen Ge had an optimistic personality. Even though he looked normal, there was an indescribable charisma about him that could bring hope to others. Xiao Bu was still expressionless. The blood on the wall wrote the same sentence again and again. She seemed to want Chen Ge to think it through. For those who had been injured many times, they would rather suffer physical pain than trust others so easily because they knew very well that the feeling of trusting someone only to realize that everything was a lie was much more painful than being cut by a knife. Let's not talk about that for now. You've met my parents. Did they tell you anything? Like what are they planning to do? Where will they go next? Quote, Chen Ge had invested so much money to maintain the haunted house because he wanted to leave a memory for himself. This was the only thing that his parents had left him, and he wanted to protect it. Finding his parents had become his obsession, so now that there was a clue, he would not let it go. Xiao Bu seemed to know that Chen Ge would ask this. More blood leaked out from the window, and another sentence appeared. They did not tell me where they are going next, but in their conversation, they mentioned Xinhai Central Hospital. That cursed hospital. One of the 2 new 4-star missions that appeared on the black phone. Quote, Chen Ge leaned against the wall and fell into deep thought. The shadow is related to the ghost fetus, and my parents' disappearance is related to Xinhai Central Hospital. Both of these scenarios are 4-star, but temporarily, I do not plan to touch them. Other than that, the 4-star mission in Western Zhejiang, School of the Afterlife, is almost up. After I leave Liwan City, I need to complete it first. Quote, the trial missions on the black phone would increase exponentially with each increase in star. Actually, even Chen Ge was not that confident. Forget it. Let's not think too much about it. Let's get through this first. Chen Ge shifted his body on Xiao Bu's side. He was already very close, but Xiao Bu did not dodge or show any signs of impatience. This caused Fan Kong to break out in cold sweat. After all, this was a real red specter. Did my parents tell you anything about the shadow? Like what weaknesses does he have? Chen Ge wanted to get more useful information from Xiao Bu, but Xiao Bu's reaction disappointed him. The bloodstains on the wall fused and changed. Finally, it began to repeat the first sentence, those without a shadow would not live long. The child should know something, but she doesn't want to say it. Chen Ge stood up. Hearing him call Xiao Bu a child, Fan Kong was shocked again, but on second thought, this red specter was indeed just a child. What should we do now? Chen Ge turned to look at Fan Kong, and Fan Kong had a bitter smile on his face. Don't ask me. Normally, I'm the one who tells you that. Fan Kong had told Chen Ge everything about the game, so now it was up to him to make the decision. Those human-shaped stains are a big problem. Compared to ghosts, they are more like evil spirits that have been purposely extracted. They are made up of pure malice and do not retain any humanity. This kind of thing had no value. If a ghost touched them, they would be assimilated, so Chen Ge did not want his employees to take the risk. Ghosts can absorb and digest them. The stronger the ghost, the more curses they can digest. If that's what you're worried about, I can open the way for you. The blood stains on the wall formed a sentence. Xiao Bu suggested a solution. A small number of curses can be suppressed, but too many curses will be assimilated. You call them curses. Chen Ge was suddenly reminded of the 4-star scenario on the black phone, the cursed hospital. After a person dies, they will leave behind many different things, lingering spirits, curses, strange things, and so on. Those stains are curses, curses made up of bad luck and malice. If one absorbs too many curses, what will happen after they are assimilated? Chen Ge asked. They will become a new curse. The scarier the specter, the harder the curse will be to resolve. The blood stains on the wall kept changing. Xiao Bu did not say anything. He used this method to communicate with Chen Ge. Can curses be controlled? Based on what you said, these curses will destroy everything they see. They cannot be controlled, so how did the shadow manage to control them? Quote, I don't know. Perhaps the shadow has his own way, or perhaps the shadow itself is a curse. The blood words on the wall surprised Chen Ge again. The shadow itself might be a curse. Chen Ge thought about it and felt that it was possible. His parents would not have lost his shadow for no reason. He had probably been cursed when he was young, and his parents had implanted the curse into his shadow. However, he did not say that out loud. He only needed to know that. If the shadow itself is a curse, then it's easy to understand why he chose Liwan City. He wants to make use of the deep malice and curse buried underneath this small town. Curses were the shadow's trump card, and that was the problem that lay before Chen Ge. You don't have to worry too much. Even a curse can't control itself, so the shadow's control is more like a switch. He can't control an individual's movement. As I said earlier, curses are filled with malice. They will attack everything they see until they turn into a curse. There are many strange things in Liwan City, and they can help us share some of the pressure. Before they all turn into curses, we just need to escape. Quote. Looking at the blood words on the wall, Chen Ge's gaze softened. The fact that Xiao Bu could tell him so much meant that the distance between them had been greatly shortened. Okay, we'll leave this place first. We'll see what happens outside before we decide what to do next. Inside the room, Fan Kong looked at Chen Ge and Xiao Bu, and the fat on his body could not stop shaking. He knew that Chen Ge was one of them, but he could not help the fear in his heart. This scene was too strange. A man holding a weapon stood next to a limbless red specter. The specter was silent. The man looked at the blood words that kept appearing on the wall, and his face was filled with gentleness. Sigh, I wish I could go home. With Chen Ge leading the way, the group walked to the elevator. There are so many underground rooms. Did you guys miss anything? Looking at the closed rooms, Chen Ge had a smile on his face. Xiao Bu, you've stayed here for so long. Do you have any neighbors? We can bring them with us. Quote. Xiao Bu shook her head. She was still not used to Chen Ge's overzealousness. Pressing the button for the elevator, when the doors opened, Fan Kong covered his mouth and nose. The old elevator was covered in blood stains and slashes. The group that had gone up earlier had all disappeared. It's fine. You'll get used to it. Chen Ge had no idea why he would comfort Fan Kong like that. The group entered the elevator and slowly approached the ground, but the strange noises on the ground had disappeared. Returning to the first floor, when the elevator door opened, Chen Ge held the hammer before him. The lobby was quiet. There were no screams or wails, and there were no dead bodies or blood stains. Where are they? Chen Ge used yin-yang vision to look around. The blood fog had thinned. Occasionally, shadows could be seen moving on the street, but they appeared to be moving in a certain direction. Something is attracting those human-shaped stains. All the curses are moving toward the door. Xiao Biyu still did not say anything. She raised her hand, and the blood fog gathered to form a few words. As the door pusher, she was the real owner of the blood fog, but everything had been stolen by the shadow. How much fog can you snatch from the shadow now? A plan formed in Chen Ge's mind. Half. My limbs and head have been hidden outside Liwan City by the shadow. That is a place that I cannot influence, and my heart is in the shadow's hands. He wants to use that heart to control the door that has gone out of control. Every word was laced with Xiao Bu's pain. Both Chen Ge and Fan Kong felt their hearts wrench when they saw it. No wonder the shadow has to build another cluster of ghost buildings outside of Liwan City. Liwan City is used to collect despair and negative emotions, and Mingyang residence is used to suppress Xiao Biyu, to make Xiao Biyu listen to him. He sure has a good plan. Chen Ge had Xiao Biyu stop controlling the blood fog to avoid alerting the shadow. A few of my friends have already left Liwan City. It won't be long before they return with your head and limbs. When that time comes, you can suddenly unleash your power, and we'll work together to kill the shadow. Chen Ge's plan was not bad, but Xiao Biyu was not interested. You won't be able to kill him. Why not? Chen Ge pressed Xiao Biyu for the reason, but Xiao Biyu did not answer. Later, when Chen Ge asked other questions, Xiao Biyu did not answer. The group walked down the streets of Liwan City. Xiao Biyu knew Liwan City very well. This was the door that she had pushed open, so normally speaking, the world behind the door was woven from her memory. With Xiao Bu's help, Chen Ge and Fan Kong avoided all the danger and arrived at the residential area where Fan Kong lived. 4/5 of the blood fog in Liwan City was gathered there, and the scarier thing was, the curses that had been accumulating in Liwan City had all surged into the blood fog. They morphed into black threads and curled around one of the figures in the middle of the fog, forcefully stopping the person from moving forward. Xiao Biyu, what is the maximum number of curses a red specter can withstand? Chen Ge was afraid that Xiao Biyu would not answer, so he added, the one fighting with the shadow can be said to be the scariest specter among all the red specters. He once shouldered all the negative emotions behind a door. Can someone like that withstand all the curses in Liwan City? Xiao Biyu shook her head. No, but it should be able to hold on for a while. Understood. Chen Ge waved for Fan Kong to move back. Let them fight first. We're just going to watch from the side. Fan Kong was confused. They're in a stalemate, and this is a chance for us. Be it to escape or ambush, we should do something. Chen Ge walked over angrily, and when he saw the situation, he planned to find a safe place to watch. That was not a very good idea. When they're done, we'll make our move. These two have many trump cards, so we mustn't let our guard down. Furthermore, the longer we drag this out, the better it will be for us. When we find all the missing parts of the door, we'll have the upper hand. Chen Ge looked at the blood fog that had gathered over half of Liwan City, and he was very calm. None of them are my friends, so the only way to win is to take them all down. You plan to take them all down? Fan Kong held his heart. He did not dare speak or ask any more questions. The shadow is using the blood fog and the curse buried deep underground in Liwan City to hold on against Dr. Gao. If he doesn't have other trump cards, he'll be the first to fall. Chen Ge understood that the curse needed some time to activate, and during this time, Dr. Gao should be able to deal with the shadow. The shadow. Dr. Gao. So, they're all your friends. Fan Kong also hoped that Chen Ge would answer, so he kept his voice low. The flyer for the Society of Strange Tales was with Xu Yin. Perhaps Dr. Gao sensed the flyer getting closer, because he became more agitated. In the blood sea, the chains rattled noisily. When did Dr. Gao become so strong? What has he been through behind the door? Has he consumed a lot of red specters? Chen Ge could not understand. When he was at Coffin Village, the red specter from the well had also become very strong behind the door, but unlike Dr. Gao, she wanted to turn over a new leaf and did not focus all her attention on becoming stronger. While he was thinking about this, Chen Ge's phone suddenly vibrated. He quickly took it out to check, and it was an unread message. It's from Tong Tong. They've succeeded. Quote. Sliding on the screen, Chen Ge frowned when he saw the message. There was only one line on the message, so many children. Come quickly. Looks like something has happened. Chen Ge pocketed his phone. Without wasting any time, he called for Fan Kong and Xiao Biyu, and they started to run toward the edge of Liwan City. Just as Chen Ge made that decision, the blood sea behind them suddenly exploded. A shadow similar in size to Chen Ge crawled out from it and raced toward the ghost apartment at the edge of Liwan City. The blood fog dispersed, and a voice that sounded like it came from the depths of hell echoed in everyone's ears. Chen Ge. The white coat was dyed red, and the redness was more glaring than fresh blood. Black chains curled around the white coat. Half of the man's body kept dissolving, and dark red blood dripped. He was heavily injured, but he did not seem to feel any pain. Slowly lifting his head, the pair of eyes that were once calm and filled with intelligence had turned crimson, and Chen Ge and the shadow were reflected in his pupils. Chen Ge. Dr. Gao. Picking up his pace, Chen Ge ran as fast as he could. He looks like he has lost his mind, but why would he still remember me in this situation? Did I leave too deep an impression on him? Quote. The shadow retreated and ran toward the edge of Liwan City. Dr. Gao had suffered the full brunt of the curse, so his condition was not that stable. The blood fog dispersed, and the red dress on Xiao Biyu became brighter. She tilted her head to study Chen Ge, like following this person would improve her luck. Quick, run. Chen Ge carried the 2 bags and started to run. However, it was Fan Kong who was struggling. He was already very fat, and this time, he was giving it his all. Wait for me. Fan Kong gripped his heart. He felt like fate could be very mysterious. The last time he ran like this was inside Chen Ge's haunted house, but this time, he was running with Chen Ge. Don't stop. I'll go find a car for you. Chen Ge ran along the road for a long time, but he did not see any usable transportation. In the end, he had no choice but to tell Xiao Biyu, when the doctor catches up to us, bring Fan Kong to find a place to hide. I'll go lure the doctor away, but don't stray too far away from me. I'll need your help to deal with the shadow. Chen Ge had already run for a long time, and Dr. Gao, whose body had started to dissolve, finally made his move. The chains cut through the blood fog, creating a shrill sound as they rubbed against the surrounding buildings. Chen Ge. The blood-red eyes stared at Chen Ge and the shadow. Perhaps he was wondering why the 2 shadows were so similar. The curse that the whole of Liwan City had accumulated for so many years had almost all surged into Dr. Gao's body. Black and red blood kept leaking out of his body, and the blood was mixed with black and gray impurities. If one got close enough, one could even hear the wailing of something inside the impurities. Seeing Dr. Gao's current state, Chen Ge shivered. The shadow's trump card sure is scary. If Dr. Gao did not show up, it would be me and all my employees who would suffer this much curse. Even if I manage to kill the shadow, I'll lose half of my employees. Quote. Each specter had a limit to the number of curses they could digest. Once the limit was exceeded, the specter would turn into a new curse, and when they were digesting the curse, their negative emotions might be triggered, and they would not be able to receive visitors at the haunted house. Without the actors, Chen Ge could only stop all the underground scenarios at the haunted house. If the haunted house could not operate normally, New Century Park would be affected. At the crucial moment of the futuristic theme park's opening, this might be the last straw that broke New Century Park's back. Everything might seem to be getting better, but in reality, only Chen Ge knew how difficult it was. If he was not careful, all the effort that he had put in would go to waste. The shadow retreated on his own and headed toward the ghost apartment. This means that Tong Tong's group has taken something that the shadow values. This is good news for me. That means that Tong Tong's group has taken something that the shadow values. This is good news for me. Quote. Behind him, Dr. Gao had caught up, but the man was in a strange state. Chen Ge had no idea why Dr. Gao was chasing after him. When he committed suicide, didn't we agree on that? I even promised to help him take care of Gao Rushui. Quote. Dr. Gao had already lost his mind, and now that he was being cursed, Chen Ge did not dare stop to talk to him. Whatever, I'll get them all to the ghost apartment. Even if there's a fight, I'll have to destroy the ghost apartment. I can't let the shadow's plan succeed. With Chen Ge leading the way, Dr. Gao and Xiao Biyu moved toward the ghost apartment. When the shadow saw this, he almost died from anger. He knew that Chen Ge was in Liwan City, but he did not expect that the person Dr. Gao was looking for was Chen Ge. Sensing a thick sense of malice, Chen Ge looked down the street. The shadow was not far from him. Pointing behind him, Chen Ge's shadow made a gesture. Yes, it was me who lured him here. The shadow gritted his teeth, but he knew that Chen Ge was protected by a red specter, and he would not be able to deal with Chen Ge in a short amount of time. Out of sight, out of mind. He picked up his speed and hurried toward the ghost apartment. Looks like Tong Tong's group has created a big problem for the shadow. Chen Ge signaled for Xiao Biyu and Fan Kong to go with him while he chased after the shadow with all his might. Soon, a strange scene appeared on the streets of Liwan City. The shadow, who was the culprit, was being chased by a living person carrying a bag. Behind him was a madman with a red specter, a panting fatty, and a little girl who had lost her limbs. The shadow was worried about the ghost apartment, so he could not care less about Chen Ge. From the looks of it, it was Chen Ge who was actively chasing after him. The ghost apartment was at Mingyang residence outside Liwan City. When Chen Ge reached the edge of Liwan City, he could clearly feel the blood fog thickening. The fog outside the small town seems to be different from the fog inside the small town. There seems to be something extra in there. Using his heart to feel, he felt like someone was calling Chen Ge's name from the west, and New Century Park should be in that direction. The shadow did not give Chen Ge any time to think. He crossed the deserted road and crashed into the residential area. The blood fog covered his body, and just like that, the shadow disappeared before Chen Ge's eyes. The shadow had disappeared, but Dr. Gao was still chasing after Chen Ge. He had to find a way to distract Dr. Gao. Chen Ge turned back to look. One of Dr. Gao's eyes had turned black and red. Countless black threads intertwined with the blood vessels, and they flowed out as grayish-black blood. The condition given by Dr. Gao is getting weirder and weirder. Xiao Biyu once said that after a specter suffers too much curse, they will be assimilated. The more powerful the specter, the scarier the curse will be. If Dr. Gao is assimilated by a specter, what kind of curse will this specter who is closest to a greater red specter become? Quote. There's no time to waste. Chen Ge reached into his backpack and yelled Yan Danian's name. Can you sense Lao Zhou's location? Quick. Quote. Lao Zhou had lived inside Yan Danian's comic for many years, and they had a good relationship. Chen Ge had the thought of giving it a try, so he yelled Yan Danian's name. The pressure from a red specter was suffocating. Knowing the urgency of the situation, the comic in his backpack flipped on its own, and then a ballpoint pen covered in cellophane tape started to draw a picture on a blank page. Lao Zhou and Meng Nan were hiding inside one of the rooms, and the window next to them allowed them to see the train station outside Liwan City. This angle. Chen Ge raised his head to look at the 4 buildings at Mingyang residence before rushing toward the one on the left. He had entered this building with Captain Yan before, and he had seen the train station from one of the windows in this building. At the crucial moment, the cooperation between the Pen Spirit and Yan Danian had given Chen Ge an important hint. Summoning Shu Yin, Chen Ge ran down the stairs. Lao Zhou, Meng Nan, he screamed, but once he opened his mouth, he realized that something was wrong. The scene in the corridor was completely different from what he had seen in real life. In real life, Mingyang residence was an unfinished building. It did not even have windows, and the floor was made of untreated cement. But now, what appeared before Chen Ge's eyes was a clean floor, whitewashed walls, and there were even lamps installed in the corridor for lighting purposes. The door that Xiao Biyu pushed open is in Liwan City. She can't influence this place, so Mingyang residence can't be made from her memory. So, why is there such a big difference between this place and real life? If not for Dr. Gao chasing after him, Chen Ge would not have entered such a strange place. The world behind the door was based on real life, and it was the manifestation of the nightmares in real life. Upon closer inspection, he realized that there were many kinds of drawings on the walls. There were little people, animals, and toys. These things look like they were drawn by children. This is so weird. Why does this place give me the same feeling as when I first entered Zhujiang's children's home? Quote. Lao Zhou and Meng Nan did not answer, and Dr. Gao was right behind him. Chen Ge did not dare go upstairs, afraid that Dr. Gao might block his escape. I'll just look around the first and second floors. With Chen Ge's current physical fitness, he would not be injured if he jumped down from the second floor, but that might not be the case on the third floor. Dr. Gao is still quite far away from me. His speed is slowing down, but he still has the upper hand. After the shadow left Liwan City, I can clearly feel that Xiao Biyu is getting stronger, and the red dress on her is getting brighter. As Chen Ge called Meng Nan and Lao Zhou's names, he rushed into the room. Seeing the closed door, he did not think much and raised his hand to slam it. The door was smashed open, and the scene behind the door shocked Chen Ge. There were no ghosts and no cruel scenes, there were only a few young children drawing. Their eyes were innocent, and they did not know what pain and hatred were. They just held the paintbrushes in their hands and looked at Chen Ge blankly. These children were like pieces of blank paper. Chen Ge was not praising their innocence, he felt like they were missing something very important. They had lost their spirituality. They were no longer humans but puppets that looked like humans. A thug with a weapon suddenly barged into the room, but they did not show any emotion. They held the paintbrushes dully and stared at Chen Ge blankly. This must be the shadow's doing. Chen Ge had heard that Mingyang residence was a residential area for ghosts. Initially, he had thought that the people who lived there were all wandering ghosts, but now he realized that he had been too naive. The shadow would not be kind enough to allow wandering ghosts to move in. Everyone who lived here was a child that he could use. Did any of you see anyone come in earlier? The children did not respond to Chen Ge's question. They looked at Chen Ge blankly for a while before picking up the paintbrushes and returning to their work. Every one of them seemed to have had their memory stripped away, and only some simple pictures were left in their minds. The meaning of their existence was to use the paintbrushes in their hands to draw these simple pictures. Chen Ge searched through a few rooms, and they were all filled with such children. In real life, there are many broken pieces of dolls at Mingyang residence. Now that I think about it, those dolls actually correspond to living people. Without wasting any time, Chen Ge came to the second floor. When he opened the door, he did not forget to shout Meng Nan's name. I've seen the Pen Spirits painting in this building before. Meng Nan and Lao Zhou must be in this building, but why didn't they answer me? Even if they're in danger, they shouldn't be so silenced, right? Quote. Tong Tong's message was a cry for help. Chen Ge knew that Meng Nan must have run into some kind of problem, but he did not expect things to be so complicated. Chen Ge hammered open the door to the second floor, and it was still filled with children. Xiao Bu's hands and legs are hidden on the higher floor. Now that Dr. Gao is about to arrive, if I go up recklessly, I might be caught in a pincer attack by the shadow and Dr. Gao. Just as he was hesitating, a voice suddenly came from the fourth floor. Chen Ge, save me, save me. Quote. There were not many people in Liwan City who knew Chen Ge's real name. Chen Ge lifted his head to look and saw Jia Ming's head poking out from the stairs, and his body was about to fall. His expression was one of extreme pain, and his eyes were bloodshot like they were about to burst. Save me. They're all here. Quote. Don't come up. Chen Ge. Leave this building immediately. Tell Captain Yan everything that happened here. Remember, you have to tell Captain Yan. When Jia Ming said that, another voice appeared. This voice was very familiar to Chen Ge, it was Inspector Li. If you want to die, don't drag me down with you. Chen Ge. They're all here. Take us away. Save us. Jia Ming seemed to be suffering from indescribable pain. His body tried to reach out. Chen Ge could see that his wrists were cuffed, and the other side of the cuff was cuffed to Li Zheng's wrist. Li Zheng, Jia Ming, scissors, and the rest had disappeared from Mingyang residence, and now they had reappeared out of nowhere. This aroused Chen Ge's suspicion. If this was any other time, he would observe for a while before making a decision, but this situation was too unique. Dr. Gao was right behind him, and he would arrive soon. He did not have much time to think, and his body instinctively raced up the stairs. He could ignore Jia Ming's life and death, but he had to save Inspector Li. A long time ago, when Chen Ge crossed swords with the Society of Strange Tales for the first time at Fanghua Apartments, this police officer had helped him a lot. He had bought him some time at the last moment. Chen Ge knew that he was not a good person, but he would remember those who were kind to him. Li Zheng mentioned Captain Yan earlier, but why would he tell Captain Yan everything that happened here? Is his identity really that special? Quote. Running to the fourth floor, Chen Ge saw that Jia Ming and Li Zheng were tied up, and a few children were pushing them toward the gap in the middle of the stairs. When the children saw Chen Ge come up, they immediately scattered. What is going on? Loosening the ropes, Chen Ge dragged Li Zheng down the stairs. He had just asked that question when there was another strange noise coming from the roof. Raising his head, he saw Scissors, the drunkard, and the doctor being pushed out from the banister, and a few children were holding their legs. The three of them were on the 7th floor. They were not too far from them, but they were not too close either. The shadow is forcing me to go upstairs. Chen Ge immediately understood the shadow's intention. Leave us alone. Get out of here. This is a trap. The drunkard screamed, and he sounded quite brave. There is only one shadow. He can't control so many people at the same time. While Chen Ge was thinking, a bang came from outside the building. A chain covered in human faces slammed heavily against the wall outside the building. Dr. Gao is coming. Gripping his fists, Chen Ge summoned Shu Yin and had him take the flyer to another building to lure Dr. Gao away. Do you think other than Shu Yin, I don't have any other red specters? Chen Ge took out the hammer and ran toward the roof as fast as he could. After killing you, I'll go and catch up with Dr. Gao. Stand here and don't move. If someone falls, remember to catch them. Chen Ge placed the bag with the white cat on the ground. He grabbed the hammer and rushed toward the 7th floor. Be careful. No matter how the drunkard screamed, Chen Ge did not stop moving. Saving someone was just a convenience. Ever since Chen Ge entered Liwan City, he did not plan to let the shadow go. A person with such a mysterious background and so many connections to him, only by capturing him would he be able to feel at ease. I should be able to get a lot of information about my parents from the shadow's mouth. When he entered Li Wan City, Chen Ge had already predicted this moment. However, he had planned to have the high heels and the smiling man scout the way for him, but who would have expected this accident, Dr. Gao, to appear out of nowhere and cause everything to spiral out of control. Overall, the situation is very favorable to me. Outside the building, Dr. Gao was lured away by Xu Yin, and this gave Chen Ge a rare opportunity. The monster is waiting for you upstairs. Do not go up there no matter what. This time, it was Scissors who spoke. He was not in a good condition. Shallow blood spots appeared on the surface of his body like the capillaries on the surface of his skin had all exploded. He is waiting for me, and I am also looking for him. Dragging the hammer, Chen Ge moved even faster. Behind him, the white cat crawled out from the bag and followed behind him with great agility. The few children on the 7th floor were obviously using scissors and the rest to lure Chen Ge away. They controlled their movements, and when Chen Ge got close, they immediately let go and ran. Give me your hand. Chen Ge dragged Scissors and the drunkard to a safe place. They were not tied up, but from the looks of it, they looked like they were allergic to something. The pain was unbearable, and it was difficult for them to even stand up. Can you walk on your own? Chen Ge helped the doctor to the side. The doctor was still poisoned. Ignore us. The shadow didn't kill us because he wants to use us to slow you down. To achieve his goal, he will stop at nothing, the doctor said weakly. It seems that your health has improved since you can speak a complete sentence. Chen Ge was about to ask the doctor what had happened to them at Fan Kong Apartments when he suddenly felt a chill on his neck. Turning back to look, the tattooed man's head poked out from the 8th floor. His face was covered in blood, and his eyes were wide open. The human head tattoo on his arm had been completely torn off. A few children with numb expressions surrounded the tattooed man. They held paintbrushes in their hands and were painting with the tattooed man's blood. Dead. They were even scarier and more numb than the children at the bottom, and their attitude towards toys was even more frightening. The tattooed man is dead. If it's said that the higher you go, the worse your fate will be. Could it be that something has happened to Meng Nan and Lao Zhou as well? Chen Ge was worried. This was the first time he realized how important these ghosts were to him. He had already treated them as his family and friends. The tattooed man's body was pushed down the stairs by the children, and it fell before Chen Ge's eyes. A life ended just like that. This was the world behind the door. In this world weaved from despair and nightmares, life and hope were the most fragile things. Seeing the tattooed man's body fall, the children seemed to have completed their mission. They scattered, leaving behind only the paintings that they had drawn with the tattooed man's blood. When the children left, the sound of laughter came from the 10th floor. The faces of the children were no longer numb. They were happy, but what they did caused Chen Ge to grit his teeth. The phone spirit, Tong Tong, was captured by the children. His body was torn apart, his phone was snatched away, and the messages that his mother had sent him were deleted. Under the shadow's care, the children could no longer be considered children. They hated beauty and thought that love and kinship were the most disgusting things in the world. In fact, Chen Ge had a feeling that the shadow was trying to raise these children to become monsters like him. Every employee of Haunted House had their own story, and the one that touched Chen Ge the most was Tong Tong. Taking care of this child was not only a scheme for Tong Tong's special power but also a promise to the boy's mother. Tong Tong did not cry or make a fuss. He had gotten used to this, be it when he was alive or when he was with Han Bao, or at the Society of Strange Tales. However, the more he behaved like that, the more it made Chen Ge's heart wrench. The children knew that Tong Tong had attracted Chen Ge's attention. They grabbed Tong Tong and ran up the stairs. Obviously, they wanted to lure Chen Ge to the roof. Chen Ge, don't go there. Li Jung dragged Ji Yuming and ran up the stairs. There are people here who are heavily injured. We need to evacuate them first. When I entered Liwan City, I notified the rest of the team. Reinforcements should arrive soon. Quote, there won't be any reinforcements. You and Ji Yuming should bring them downstairs first. Remember to stay away from here. Chen Ge frowned slightly. He communicated with the comic and opened a page before returning to normal. The whole process only took less than a second. Aren't you going to leave with us? What are you going to do? Li Jung tried his best to stop Chen Ge. I'm not good at educating children, so I can only treat these people who bully children as adults. It would be much easier if they were adults. Chen Ge picked up the hammer and mumbled a name. In the narrow stairwell, a heavy scent of blood drifted in the air. A pair of twisted arms appeared next to Chen Ge and landed lightly on his shoulders. Capture them. Bring them back and educate them slowly. The head that hung on his shoulders slowly rose up. The body that had been completely deformed due to the car accident had returned to normal when the head was raised. The red specter that Chen Ge had brought out from White Dragon Cave tunnel was awakened. She seemed to be curious about the world outside the tunnel. The blood fog stimulated her body, and she had the urge to kill everything before her. Xu Yin led Dr. Gao away. Bai Cholan was too weak to handle an emergency, so to ensure his own safety, Chen Ge used his trump card, the Tunnel Lady. With a red specter leading the way, he could do whatever he wanted. No matter the time or place, a red specter was a very scary presence. When the children in the building saw the red specter, they instinctively avoided her. The few bad kids who held Tong Tong stopped smiling. Like they had completed their mission, they lured Chen Ge to the rooftop. The rooftop is dangerous. Don't go there. Li Jung yelled anxiously from behind. He seemed to have gotten some information from Jia Ming. In the heat of the moment, he ignored Scissors and the drunkard on the ground and chased after Chen Ge. With the red specter leading the way, Chen Ge did not have to worry about the danger around him anymore. He calmed down and started to consider several important questions. In the painting that the Pen Spirit and Yan Danian showed me, Lao Zhou and Meng Nan were hiding inside one of the small houses. They were not captured, but they were temporarily trapped. In other words, the shadow did not have full control of the situation. He has been fighting with Dr. Gao and only disappeared from my sight to hide inside the ghost apartment. What kind of scary trap could he have set up in such a short time? The shadow has fought with Zhongya before, so he knows that I have a top red specter with me. Therefore, he has to set up a trap that can threaten a top red specter to have a 100% chance of killing me. This kind of trap is not that easy to set up. Chen Ge knew this very well. He narrowed his eyes, and the small incident that had happened earlier flashed across his mind. I understand now. Without slowing down, Chen Ge rushed up the stairs. The higher they went, the heavier the resentment in the children's hearts. They turned from lingering spirits to baleful specters. After the 11th floor, some of the children's clothes started to have blood stains. Chen Ge even saw a boy in half a red shirt. Without the help of the tunnel woman, with just him and Bai Cholan, they would only be able to reach the 11th floor. But even with the help of the tunnel woman, it was not that easy for them. Many pictures appeared on the wall. They were painted with a special kind of black liquid. Chen Ge had seen this kind of paint before at the hotel owner's place. It could affect red specters. Chen Ge had regretted using such a precious thing to agitate the headless woman. At first glance, the pictures on the wall were all painted with this black liquid, and it made one uncomfortable to walk among them. All the pictures are so messy, like they were drawn by a bored child. Could these pictures have been drawn by the ghost fetus? The tunnel woman who walked at the front took most of the pressure. She was not in a good condition. Even a red specter can be suppressed. Is this liquid related to something above a red specter? Chen Ge looked at the pictures. Most of them were records of daily life, but they caused Chen Ge's scalp to go numb, and goosebumps rose all over his body. He had no idea why he was so afraid of these things. Could the pictures on the wall be things that I have experienced? But how come I have no memory of them at all? No, these should be the ghost fetus, memory. They have nothing to do with me. Chen Ge, why are you spacing out? Follow me downstairs now. Li Jung and Jim Ming followed behind him. A normal person was not that sensitive to these pictures. They could not sense the deep hatred and fear in them. My employee is still in their hands. As the boss, how can I abandon him and run away on my own? Resisting the pressure, the tunnel woman and Chen Ge reached the highest floor of the building, but Tong Tong was nowhere to be seen. Chen Ge saw that the door that led to the rooftop was half open. Shadow spent so much effort just to lure me here. The door that led to the rooftop was covered in black pictures, but the content was different from the pictures on the wall. There were no details of daily life but scenes of death that were so cruel that one could not bear to look at them. The child in the pictures had experienced many deaths, but he was still alone. He did not know the purpose of his existence. It felt like he was living to wait for the next death that would be more painful. Standing at a distance, the black pictures eventually formed the shape of a person, and the shape of this person was identical to Chen Ge. The color of the picture below the human shape was lighter, and it darkened further away. It gave Chen Ge the feeling that the monster would return to this place every few years and use the pictures to fill up his growing body. This human shape should have started out as a child, and as it slowly grew, it would eventually become the same size as Chen Ge. However, the things that accompanied Chen Ge's growth were sunshine and hope, but the things that grew with the person on the door were many more exaggerated and scary deaths. Tong Tong is behind the door. Chen Ge looked at the door that led to the rooftop, and his mind was in a trance. The many ways of death crawled into his mind like they were trying to forcibly assimilate into his own memory. I have not experienced these things. These are not my memories. Chen Ge raised the hammer and prepared to swing it at the door before him. It was as if by smashing the door, the painful memories that did not belong to him would disappear. His expression was twisted. Just as the hammer was about to fall, he felt a sharp pain in his heart like he was being poked by a needle. The intense pain woke Chen Ge up. In that short moment, his back was drenched in sweat. Reaching into his shirt pocket, Chen Ge found the two halves of the same key from his shirt pocket. Self-control key. The rust on the key had faded a lot. Chen Ge still had not figured out how to use the self-control key, but it was this thing that had woken him up. When his memory merges with mine, the consequences will be unimaginable. Chen Ge put down the hammer and looked at the half-open door. He mumbled to himself like he had lost his mind, "Who are you? Why do you hate me so much?" Quote, "We shouldn't stay here for long. We should leave this place first." Li Jung looked around cautiously. His hand reached for the gun, and he was about to run when he saw Chen Ge slowly turn around and stare at him. "Who are you?" Holding the hammer, Chen Ge's eyes were red. "Me, Chen Ge. What's wrong with you?" Li Jung's hand pressed against the gun. He wanted to pull it out, but he soon realized that Chen Ge was ready. Once he touched the gun, Chen Ge would make his move. "You're not Li Jung." Chen Ge's voice was hoarse. "Earlier, you said that when you entered Liwan City, you notified the other members. At the time, you were hunting Jia Ming alone. When we first met at the hotel, I did not see a walkie-talkie on you, and the range of a walkie-talkie is limited, so you probably used a phone to contact the other members. What's wrong with using a phone? Before I entered Liwan City, I received your message. Your voice and tone matched Inspector Lee's perfectly, but due to the situation, I did not answer your call and asked you to send me a message. Your handwritten message was different from Inspector Lee's, and from then on, I suspected that Inspector Lee had been replaced by the shadow. Chen Ge's eyes were bloodshot, but his voice slowly calmed down. When Dr. Gao fought the shadow, it was also when you guys disappeared. Now that the battle between the shadow and Dr. Gao has ended, you guys appeared, so the shadow has to be among the missing members. Quote. Li Jung still wanted to say something, but he was interrupted by Chen Ge. You were afraid of being exposed, so you used your trump card and had the curses help you bring away all the people outside. That way, you could continue to hide your identity. Chen Ge took a step forward, and the red specter guarded him. Initially, I only suspected it, but just now, I confirmed that you're the shadow. He opened the comic and released a sickly little black dog. The dog was happy to see Chen Ge, but when it saw Li Jung, it suddenly became confused. You're the most unique existence to it. You can trick us, but you can't trick the person who sees you as his whole world. Chen Ge released the black dog that he had brought out from the kennel. Seeing the black dog, Li Jung's hand that was holding the gun slowly relaxed. The anxiety and anger on his face disappeared, and in its place was a calmness that was as deep as a lake. How laughable. I've only done one good deed in my life, and it became the key to your plan. Li Jung glanced at the black dog, and the chill in his eyes caused the dog to curl up on the ground. I should have killed it. I just thought it would be fun to play with it. As he said that, Li Jung's eyes closed, and his body collapsed to the ground. However, his shadow stood behind him, maintaining the same posture as before. When Chen Ge went up the stairs, he had thought it through. The shadow and Dr. Gao were both heavily injured, so what kind of trap could they set up in such a hurry? The shadow did not know how many red specters Chen Ge had. If he gave Chen Ge the chance to summon a red specter, his chance of winning would be very small. Even if he lured Chen Ge into a trap, with the protection of a top red specter, Chen Ge might not necessarily die. Therefore, in this situation, the shadow might use another method to kill Chen Ge. He would not use the power of a ghost but other methods, like Li Jung's gun. If Chen Ge did not have his guard up against Li Jung, he would not have summoned a red specter when Li Jung got close to him. At this time, the shadow only needed to hide his evil intentions so that the red specter would not notice him. Then, he would take out his gun, pull the trigger, and he would be able to kill Chen Ge. Compared to wasting a lot of time to create a trap that might not be useful, this was the simplest and most effective method. The shadow knew that the higher he went, the more the red specter would be suppressed. The black substance should have come from a being stronger than a red specter, and it could affect a red specter greatly. With the interference of these things, his chance of success would be higher. In reality, everything was developing according to his plan, but the final result surprised him. Before he took out Li Jung's gun, Chen Ge had already discovered his real identity. In the dark corridor, blood fog floated, and the sound of children crying filled the air. The shadow stood several meters away from Chen Ge. His shape was slowly changing. His body slowly grew taller until he looked exactly like Chen Ge. You do not seem to be ready to meet me. Looking at the shadow, Chen Ge had a strange feeling. It was like he was talking to himself in the mirror at night. You were wrong. From the moment you abandoned me, I knew this day would come, but it was different from my plan. The shadow's voice was slowly changing, and it sounded more and more like Chen Ge. I thought that when we meet again, I will be the human, and you will be the shadow. Do you really want me to be your shadow? Chen Ge stood where he was. The shadow was able to fight against Zhang Ya, so he was as powerful as a top red specter. Even though he was heavily injured by Dr. Gao, Chen Ge did not dare let his guard down. A person without a shadow will not live long. I hope you can be my shadow. Then, I can try all the ways I have died on you. The tone of the shadow was adjusted, and the voice of the shadow finally became exactly the same as Chen Ge's. Do you hate me that much? Have I ever done anything to you? Chen Ge did not feel that he had lost his memory, nor did he remember doing anything excessive when he was young. Looks like you have really forgotten, but that is fine. In the future, I will make you remember everything. Inside the door and outside the door, you and me, you inside the door and me outside the door. With each word, the shadow's body would grow taller. He stood at the bottom of the stairs, but he was taller than Chen Ge. You have not done anything to me. You live under the sun, wrapped in warmth, surrounded by laughter and hope. You have enjoyed all the good things, but the curses, insults, and malice that you have suffered have all been transferred to me. My negative emotions are all transferred to you. Chen Ge raised his brows. Negative emotions are not enough to describe the despair I felt as I slowly sank into the abyss. I could see myself falling bit by bit, but I couldn't make a sound. My neck was strangled, and my body was about to be crushed. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, and couldn't even die. The shadow's voice slowly grew louder. Initially, I did not want to hurt anyone. Even when I was surrounded by endless curses, even when I floated in the ocean of despair, even when I suffered pain that you could never imagine, the thought of harming others never crossed my mind. The shadow's body was expanding and twisting. The pictures on the walls came alive, and the small black figures died again and again. Until one day, in the depths of despair, I saw a door in your house. The shadow's words caused Chen Ge to go on alert. He knew that there was a door in the bathroom of the haunted house, but he had no idea who had pushed it open. You pushed it open. When I was under the curse, the door was already there. My despair was not enough to push the door open, but I heard the voice behind the door. The shadow's pressure grew. Someone was calling your name behind the door. You could not hear it, but I answered it on your behalf. The shadow's eerie voice caused goosebumps to rise on Chen Ge's neck. It was from that moment that I realized why I could not become you. Why did I have to hide in the shadow and cry when you were basking in the sun? I am your shadow, but that does not mean that I have to suffer all the pain for you. Quote. When he said the last word, an arm suddenly reached out from the shadow's heart to grab at Chen Ge's neck. It was very sudden, like everything he had done earlier was to distract Chen Ge's attention. The shadow had been injured in the battle with Dr. Gao, and his body was dim, but the arm that reached out from his heart appeared to be real. Even the fingerprints on each finger were carved with blood vessels. When the shadow made his move, the woman from the tunnel stood before Chen Ge, but she had underestimated the shadow's power. The arm pierced through her body, carrying the blood vessels in her body as it reached for Chen Ge. Rip. The comic inside the backpack gave off a soft sound, and one of the pages crumbled. However, at that moment, the black hand stopped. The woman from the tunnel screamed. She had died from the car accident, and her body was already badly deformed. She grabbed the arm that had pierced through her body with both hands. The woman ignored the arm that had pierced through her body and allowed it to stay inside her body. She hung on the shadow and attacked the shadow madly. The woman from the tunnel was different from other red specters. Underneath her red dress was a broken body, and there were broken bones inside it. Her special power was related to those broken bones. The bones that were dyed red pierced into the shadow's body. The woman's body kept changing shape like she was trying to use her own body to consume the shadow. What kind of power is this? The shadow turned to Chen Ge. How many more specters do you have on you? Why don't you take a guess? Chen Ge wanted to understand what was going on with the door at the haunted house, so he did not attack the shadow. Yan Danian and the woman from the tunnel had bought precious time for Chen Ge. He retreated, calling Zhang Ya's name in his heart. Even in the face of death, you can still smile. Everything that you are able to do now is because of me. The shadow's voice turned chilling. His body was weakening under the woman's relentless attacks, but he did not seem to be in a hurry. But he did not appear to be in a hurry. He merely expressed his hatred toward Chen Ge. This place has already been destroyed, so there is no need to keep it around anymore. The child that was sent to the ghost fetus should be enough for him to be born. The black pictures on the wall started to change. All the black people that were killed in the pictures walked out from the pictures and melted into the shadow's body. The children in the building started to laugh strangely. They were no longer innocent children but the shadow's puppets. All the children inside the building are the ghost fetus, sacrifices. Just how many people have you buried in eastern Zhejiang? The door behind Chen Ge changed the most. The black shadow that looked like him slowly faded, and many black people with broken limbs and possessed by hatred and resentment walked out from it. Each of them had two faces. One was their original face, and the other was about 80% similar to Chen Ge. This scene looked very scary, but the shadow seemed to be enjoying this process. The ghost fetus, resentment is too deep for him to be born, so I can only use these children to share the ghost fetus, resentment. You saw that, right? So many children are needed to offset part of the ghost fetus, resentment. You can imagine how much pain I have endured for you. Quote. There was no innocent smile on the children's faces. Their current expressions were numb, strange, and filled with an abhorrence toward life. This was very scary in Chen Ge's eyes. If left unchecked, these children might give birth to a new ghost fetus, and that was probably the scenario that the shadow wanted to see the most. The black people surged into the shadow's body, and his dim body materialized again. The dark curse flowed on the surface of his body, forcing out the bone spike that the woman from the tunnel had stabbed into his body earlier. Even a normal red specter would not touch a curse. When the black people appeared, the woman's body morphed again and moved away from the shadow. I haven't gone to find you because I'm waiting for the day I can turn you into my shadow. I didn't expect you to come and interfere with my plan on your own. Many children's faces appeared on the shadow's body. These children had all lost their sense of self, and they had strange smiles on their faces. A person without a shadow is incomplete. I will turn you into my shadow. Just as the shadow was about to make his move on Chen Ge, a series of loud noises came from outside the building. Looking out the window, he saw a series of chains attacking the building madly for no reason. You were the one who lured that madman here, weren't you? The shadow was rather helpless toward Dr. Gao. I was only prepared for the red specter on your body, but I didn't expect you to find a second top red specter. But even if you have their help, you won't be able to change the situation unless you can find a third top red specter. From the shadow's words, Chen Ge could tell that something was wrong. He immediately called for Zhang Ya, but the thing that caused him to sweat was that at this crucial moment, Zhang Ya did not give him any response. I know that Red Spectre is living in your shadow, but don't forget, I am your shadow. The blood fog dispersed, and the whole building could hear the shadow's hysterical laughter. With the help of the weak light from the blood moon, Chen Ge saw that the shadow's legs had somehow connected to his own legs. As more and more black people melted into Chen Ge, the connection between the shadow and Chen Ge became tighter. When you were young, your parents should have told you not to go to eastern Zhejiang to play, right? The shadow's voice was laced with excitement and viciousness. They were worried that I would return to your body. My plan is flawless. How could I lose? The ghost fetus will be reborn, and this lingering spirit of mine will turn back into your shadow. I will slowly assimilate you. I will return all the ways of death, all the despair, and all the pain that I have experienced to you. I am the evil spirit that you cannot shake off. I am the past that you have to face. I am you. Quote. The whole building could hear the shadow's voice clearly. He seemed to have waited for this day for a long time. I will give you my memory and turn you into me, and then you will become the ghost fetus, shadow. Everything is so perfect. Even if there is an accident, the ending has already been decided. Quote. Chen Ge was calling Zhang Ya's name madly in his heart, but there seemed to be a barrier between him and Zhang Ya, and Zhang Ya could not hear him. It's useless. I am your shadow. If she wants to come out from the shadow, she will have to replace me and become your new shadow. The shadow was laughing madly. He was about to achieve his goal for so many years, and his emotions were out of control. The dark hands gripped Chen Ge's neck, and the shadow looked down at him from above. I have played the role of many people, and today, I can finally find myself again. With a red face, Chen Ge's feet left the ground, and he could not make any sound. At that moment, a man whose chest was dyed red appeared. He grabbed one of the shadow's arms, but he only managed to slow down the speed at which the shadow's arms were raised. A white cat leapt high into the air and bit at the shadow's face, but its body passed through the shadow and slammed heavily to the ground. There was no call, and Chen Ge did not make any sound, but many shadows appeared from the backpack. The shadow's arms were grabbed by many hands, but even so, that was not enough to change the situation. Bang! 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 The sound of the chains hitting the building became clearer and clearer, as if someone was guiding the chains upwards. As the window on the top floor was smashed open, a blood-red shadow leapt at the shadow without a care for anything else. The long fingers pierced into the shadow's body. The red specter's hands held the shadow's arms. The melancholy on his face had disappeared, and in its place was endless anger and anxiety. There's another red specter. The shadow was filled with hatred. For some reason, he hated Chen Ge even more. He wanted to destroy this man, to destroy everything that this man cared about. The black curses surged into the red specter's body. Black patterns appeared on the red specter's shirt that was dripping blood. The curses crawled into his body like worms, gnawing on his face and heart madly. So painful. He gritted his teeth. The red blood turned black after it leaked out, but he did not plan to retreat. Disgusting. You things make me feel disgusted. The shadow shouted loudly. More and more curses poured into the body of the red specter in front of him. The blood vessels cracked, and the body crumbled. Endless curses charged at the red specter. So painful. So painful. So painful. Quote. Shu Yin's face was twisted. His body was on the verge of disintegration, but the empty spot around his heart was slowly turning red. There was no reason for Shu Yin to not retreat even one step under the onslaught of the shadow's curses. Bang! The chains reached in through the window. They charged at Shu Yin like an anaconda that had smelled blood. Dr. Gao had arrived, and his target was the flyer that Shu Yin was holding. The chains that were tainted with curses and reeking of blood swept at Shu Yin, but Shu Yin showed no intention of dodging. If he was hit by the chains, the shadow that stood next to him would be injured as well. Damn it! To avoid Dr. Gao's attack, the shadow had no choice but to let go for now. Chen Ge landed on the ground. Bai Cholan immediately hugged him and carried his backpack. He slammed open the door next to him and ran to the rooftop. You won't be able to escape. I've thought about this for a long time. Now, you have nowhere to run. The shadow charged at him, and the workers inside the haunted house were swept away. Only Shu Yin was struggling to hold on. He alone was not enough to stop the shadow. Zhang Ya, can you hear me? The shadow was under Chen Ge's feet, and he blocked Chen Ge's voice. It's useless. When we fought at the fresh water plant, I saw this. This fatal flaw. This is a fatal flaw. The shadow grabbed Shu Yin's head and slammed it heavily into the ground. He dragged the man's body as he ran toward Chen Ge. Fatal flaw. Chen Ge reached into his backpack. Actually, I've been thinking about how to face Zhang Ya. I don't know where she is in my heart, but now I understand. Chen Ge took out the precious love letter from the inside of his backpack. Then he took out a lighter and lit it up. I don't need to use these things anymore. The flame burned, and Chen Ge's shadow boiled. Without any warning, it was like a black ocean was welcoming a storm. "What are you doing?" The shadow's expression shifted, and his body started to fade. "You're not planning to make that baleful specter your shadow, are you?" Standing up, Chen Ge flicked the ashes of the love letter to the ground. "Zhang Ya, let's be together forever. I do not believe there is anything more romantic in this world than being inseparable forever." Bang! A pale hand pierced through Chen Ge's shadow, and the black ocean poured out. From top to bottom, the windows of the entire building shattered, layer by layer. Under the blood moon's illumination, a woman leaned gently behind Chen Ge. "Zhang Ya, after a person died, their lingering spirit could only survive if it was placed on an object, and Zhang Ya's hope was the cursed love letter." Chen Ge had burned the love letter on the rooftop because he wanted to cut off Zhang Ya's painful past. He had found a new hope for Zhang Ya. For the rest of their lives, they would be inseparable. From the moment he burned the love letter, he was Zhang Ya's only hope. The black hair was like an ocean, cascading down and swallowing the whole building. The shadow holding Xu Yin's neck was completely stunned. His legs that were connected to Chen Ge were brutally torn apart. The curses fell like black snow in the blood-red night. "You want a baleful specter to be your shadow?" There was a rage in the shadow's heart that he had nowhere to vent. His body kept twisting. "This shouldn't be happening. This is completely different from what I expected." At Mingyang residence, the shrill cries of children came from all four buildings at the same time. Small shadows crawled out from the windows and headed toward different rooms in their respective buildings. Soon, in the building on the west side, a small shadow walked out from the room. He was dragging a snow-white arm, the arm that belonged to Xiao Biyu. He stood at the edge of the building and bit down on the arm. Then something that made one's scalp go numb happened. All the shadows in the building started to tear at the arm. With every bite, there would be a new bite mark on the arm, and the shadow's presence would increase. "You are my shadow. I will make you my shadow." Mingyang residence was outside of Liwan City, but now the blood fog in Liwan City was being drawn toward Mingyang residence like a tidal wave. Not enough, not enough. The shadow turned to look at the other buildings, but the scene before him disappointed him again. In the building on the south side, a strange man who had a smile on his face carried Xiao Bu's broken body to the rooftop. His body was covered in wounds, and the wounds were like mouths that were laughing. In the building on the north side, it looked like it was raining blood. A crazy woman in a red raincoat with her mouth sewn shut was protecting Xiao Bu's broken body as she went on a killing spree. "Boss!" Lao Zhou's voice came from below. The shadow and Chen Ge turned to look at the same time. At the bottom of the building, Meng Nan, who was only as tall as Lao Zhou's knee, was carrying Lao Zhou, who was about to dissipate. Holding Xiao Bu's head in his remaining arm, he was running madly toward Liwan City. Xiao Bu's limbs and head were the key to the shadow's control. To control the door that had gone out and to turn Xiao Biyu into a puppet that he could easily manipulate, he had spent a lot of effort on Xiao Biyu, but now, Chen Ge had ruined everything. The shadow only managed to obtain one of Xiao Bu's arms. His control over Liwan City was even weaker than Xiao Bu's. "Why are all of you helping this man? He lives under the sun, bathed in hope, surrounded by laughter, and the one who bears all the curses and malice is me." Quote. Unable to trigger the blood fog in Liwan City, the small black shadows all swarmed toward the shadow's body. He looked at Chen Ge with venom in his eyes. Chen Ge did not answer the shadow's question. His palm ran through the black hair beside him. "I've never bathed in hope, and I've never lived under the sun, surrounded by laughter. I'm just lucky to have met a group of beautiful people." The black hair blocked Chen Ge's vision. The extremely red shirt walked past Chen Ge, and a few slender fingers grabbed a black snowflake that was about to fall on him. The fingers tightened, and the shadow's curse disintegrated into dust before it could even scream. Zhang Ya stood before Chen Ge. She tilted her head to look at Xu Yin, who was strangled by the shadow. You want to save him? The shadow grabbed Xu Yin's head with one hand. Before he could say anything else, his head was gripped by a pale hand. Without any pause, the black hair rained down like water. Zhang Ya grabbed the shadow's head and slammed it to the ground. Bang! The top floor collapsed, and the whole floor was broken through, and this was just the beginning. Unable to control the blood fog in Liwan City, unable to use the power behind the door, and after the intense battle with Dr. Gao, the shadow was at his weakest. He did not expect Zhang Ya to suddenly make a move, and he did not expect that in just a few days, this red specter would become even scarier. When Zhang Ya was fighting the shadow, Chen Ge found Xu Yin, whose body was almost torn apart, at the edge of the top floor. Xu Yin seemed to know that his boss was safe, and the static in the recorder weakened. His arm that was resting on his chest slowly slid down to reveal the heart that was dyed red with blood. The face slowly returned to normal. Xu Yin turned to look at Chen Ge, and the corner of his lips curled upward like he was trying to make an expression that he had never made before, but he failed multiple times. In the end, he returned to his normal self. It's fine now. Chen Ge helped Xu Yin up. The static disappeared, and the red tape stopped spinning. The heavily injured Xu Yin returned to the recorder. Was he trying to smile earlier? Chen Ge stood up and accepted the backpack from Bai Cholan. The comic, recorder, ballpoint pen, and doll were all there. Everyone is here. This is the silver lining. The building under their feet was shaking. Other than Zhang Ya's black hair and the snowflakes from the shadow's curse, there were chains carved with human faces piercing into the building. Screams could be heard. Chen Ge turned to the side of the building. Dr. Gao, who was on all fours, crawled at the edge of the building like a beast. The pair of red eyes stared right at Chen Ge. Found you, Chen Ge. When Dr. Gao got close, a pair of pale arms blocked Chen Ge's way. Compared to the shadow, Dr. Gao gave Zhang Ya a greater sense of danger. The red dress was eye-catching. Zhang Ya at her peak was like a blood-red sun, and Dr. Gao, who carried all the curses in Liwan City, looked more like an abyss. Endless negative emotions and curses roiled his body. He alone was the abyss of despair. Madman, cooperate with me. I know you want to get something from that person. I can give him to you, and I can even tell you all the secrets about him. The shadow's vitality was beyond anyone's expectation. He was like an unkillable monster. He would only grow weaker and weaker, but he would never truly disappear. Dr. Gao did not agree to the shadow's offer. He was in a very strange state. He was acting based on the last bit of memory in his mind. Chen Ge had no idea what he wanted, but he knew that if he did not do something, Zhang Ya would be surrounded by both Dr. Gao and the shadow. A battle was about to break out. Chen Ge summoned Xu Yin and took out the flyer for the Society of Strange Tales that he had taken with him. On the familiar flyer, the door that represented the Society of Strange Tales had been pushed open, and a pale hand reached out from behind the door. As he got closer, Chen Ge could see clearly that the hand was Dr. Gao's hand. He had left a backup plan on all the flyers, but God's plan seemed to have gone awry. Holding the flyer, Chen Ge stood behind Zhang Ya and told Dr. Gao, "You've forgotten too many things, and now I'm here to help you remember. You were once the chairperson of the Society of Strange Tales, and I was personally chosen by you to join the society. This flyer is the best proof." Quote. The mention of the Society of Strange Tales caused the red in Dr. Gao's eyes to change slightly. Don't listen to him. Follow your heart. The shadow was panicking, this time for real. He did not dare imagine himself being surrounded by both Dr. Gao and Zhang Ya. Yes, follow your heart. Chen Ge raised the flyer high. Before you died, you entrusted the Society of Strange Tales to me. I am the person you trust the most, and that is why you remember my name. Yes, I am Chen Ge. I am the current chairperson of the Society of Strange Tales, Chen Ge. And behind me, these red specters and red specters, they are the current Society of Strange Tales. Quote. Chen Ge was not lying, he was telling the truth. Even an expert in micro-expressions would not be able to tell the difference. Now, I am the only living person left in the Society of Strange Tales. I am the only hope of the society. I don't know why you're looking for me, but I know you have something important to tell me. Quote. Taking a step forward, Chen Ge raised the flyer above his head. Liwan City has taken away 1/3 of the Society of Strange Tales' heritage. Closing the door that has gone out of control was the last request you gave me before you left. Today, I've braved all the obstacles to reach this place, and I'm going to take back everything that should belong to the Society of Strange Tales. Quote. The Shadow was a master of psychological warfare. When he heard what Chen Ge said, he had a bad feeling. The man did not appear to be lying. He was here because the doctor was guiding him. Chen Ge did not give the Shadow the chance to speak and cut him off. He stared into Dr. Gao's eyes. Remember what you once told me. Remember the promise we made. Remember your daughter, she is still waiting for you to come home. Quote. Humans were indeed a unique life form. Even though he had been burdened by all the negative emotions behind the door, even though he was cursed by the whole town, even though he had turned into a dark abyss, there was still a trace of humanity left in Dr. Gao's heart that he did not know about, and that was the memory of Gao Rushui. The red eyes slowly turned, and Dr. Gao stared at the Shadow standing on the other side of the rooftop. The white coat that was dyed red fluttered in the wind, and black blood dripped down from the building. Chen Ge had no idea what had happened to Dr. Gao behind the door, and he had no idea where his wife, whom he had been carrying behind his back, had gone. He only knew one thing, and that was that Dr. Gao seemed to have lost his mind due to consuming too many red specters and specters. He had lost his memory, and he could only act on instinct. There were probably two reasons why he remembered Chen Ge. The first was that Dr. Gao had given Chen Ge all the final orders, including closing the door that had gone out of control in Liwan City and taking care of his daughter, Gao Rushui. The second reason was probably because all of Dr. Gao's plans when he was alive revolved around Chen Ge. In fact, he had even come up with a plan after his death. Everything was related to Chen Ge and the haunted house. All kinds of chess pieces had been set up, and that was why he had kept Chen Ge in mind. A person could go crazy for various reasons, but it was too difficult for a crazy person to completely recover, because the first enemy he had to face was himself. Chen Ge also saw this, so he stood up at this time. He knew that Dr. Gao would not be awakened just because of a few words, and he did not expect Dr. Gao to give up his desire to attack him. All he wanted was to transfer Dr. Gao's curiosity toward him to the Shadow clone. Once the uncertain factor, the Shadow, was eliminated, the rest would be much easier to deal with. Drive Gao, even though you've lost your memory, even though you've become a red specter, you're still the chairperson in my heart. It was you who told me what a real ghost story is, it was you who made me understand the real Society of Strange Tales. Don't hesitate anymore. The door in Liwan City once belonged to the Society of Strange Tales, and it will always belong to the Society of Strange Tales. The chain carved with human faces reached out from the building and crawled on the wall. Its target was the Shadow. The Shadow did not expect Chen Ge to really be able to convince a red specter who had lost his mind, and he soon realized that something even worse was about to happen. When the chain reached toward the Shadow, the black hair cut off all his escape routes, and Zhongya attacked the Shadow at the same time. He is not a red specter, but his vitality is stronger than a red specter's. We'd better surround him and then figure out a way to kill him. A madman, and a person who was not much better than a madman, these were the two chairmen of the Society of Strange Tales. From a certain perspective, they were not bad in Dr. Gao's eyes. I am your shadow. If you want to kill me, you'll have to die with me. The shadow was already very weak, but he still did not give in to Chen Ge. It was as if showing any weakness before Chen Ge was something shameful. From the moment I burned the love letter, you've stopped being my shadow. I have no idea whether I can kill you or not, but I hope you can calm down and enjoy the ghost story that I've created for you. Consider this the last gift that I'll give you before we part. Chen Ge retreated. The shadow under his feet was connected to Zhang Ya, and the shadow stood alone on the other side of the rooftop. A gift. The shadow let out a creepy laugh. The first gift that I've received in my life is a ghost story. The laughter was mixed with the cries of many children. They cried every time they died, and then they became numb, and finally, they even laughed when they were in pain. I will definitely kill you. I can't wait for the ghost fetus to be born anymore. After the shadow said that, his body solidified, and the face slowly became clearer. The facial features became more prominent, like a person crawling out from the water. The shadow had completely turned into Chen Ge. I am you, I am you. He stabbed himself with both hands, and the curse flowed through his fingertips. Scars appeared one by one, and those ugly scars gathered on his body to form unique symbols. Finally, all the symbols gathered on his chest, forming the image of a baby. However, this baby was different from a normal child. His heart was beating, and he radiated endless malice. Looking at him, it was like looking at the ghost on the door of the haunted house. Ghost fetus. The baby's limbs stretched out in all directions. The shadow's body was torn apart, and 4 spider-like limbs crawled out from the shadow's body. His expression was identical to the baby's at that moment. It was a look of hatred toward everything in the world. The chains that were carved with human faces slammed into the shadow. His face twisted, and more arms crawled out from his back. They pierced through his body. Drops of black liquid that symbolized the curse shot out from his body, and it looked like a black rain was falling on the rooftop. I have not forgotten all the despair that I have experienced. Every death will only make me stronger. You said you want to kill me, but even I do not know how to kill myself. The shadow's face was like a mask that had fallen to the ground. Cracks appeared on it. Blood vessels crawled out from the baby's body and crawled into the shadow's body. He was still growing. He was consuming the shadow to make himself grow. I am the person closest to death. I like death, and I like to have you all taste death with me. The shadow's face crumbled completely. The baby on his chest suddenly opened his eyes. The venomous gaze was the same as the shadow's. Do not give him the chance to separate the baby from his body. Chen Ge shouted. When he said that, Dr. Gao had already rushed forward. His expression was crazed. He could smell the scent that made him excited. He seemed to sense an existence beyond a red specter from this shadow. Dr. Gao opened his arms. Under the blood-red sky, he appeared to be more excited than ever. Chains extended from under his clothes. They were his means of attack, but at the same time, they were also a form of restraint for him. No one knew what had happened to Dr. Gao. The chains appeared to have been voluntarily tied around his body when he was conscious. They symbolized despair and negative emotions, representing all the living people and ghosts that had died because of him. The chains bound all the people that he had killed, but at the same time, they bound him as well. As more and more chains surged out from his body, Dr. Gao appeared to have unlocked one layer of shackles after another, and a very scary presence radiated out. Black blood dripped to the ground. Mixed with the curse, they morphed into blood vessels. One end extended to Dr. Gao's feet, and the other end was connected to the world behind the door. The white coat that was soaked in blood was blown away by the night wind. A strange voice came from under Dr. Gao's body. Such a nice smell. I want to stuff him into my body. Eat him, eat him, eat him. Quote. The woman's voice was mixed in. Another face grew out of Dr. Gao's stomach. The features were slanted, and the eyes were filled with greed. Shut up. Hearing the woman's voice, Dr. Gao reached out and stabbed himself. Blood dripped down the chains. This is food that I have not tasted before. This is something that I have not tasted before. It's not you, it's me. Eat him. Strange voices came out from Dr. Gao's body. The faces grew out of Dr. Gao's body. They appeared to have melded with Dr. Gao. Shut up. Shut up. I told you to shut up. Blood flowed from inside out. The white coat on Dr. Gao's body was dyed red, and his body kept twisting under this self-torture. Dr. Gao, who had calmed down when he ran into Chen Ge, went berserk again. The chains on his body appeared to be there to imprison the faces. As the chains fell, the faces used his body to express their desires. The night flowed, and under the wounds, the woman continued to laugh madly. Actually, Chen Ge had seen this face before. He had seen this woman in the room filled with pictures of the victims of the Society of Strange Tales. She was one of the victims killed by the Society of Strange Tales. Under the influence of negative emotions, she had become one of Dr. Gao's burdens, or rather, she had become a part of Dr. Gao's burden. Different voices came out from under Dr. Gao's bloody clothes. Chen Ge did not dare to imagine the body under Dr. Gao's white coat. He could only watch Dr. Gao's hands tearing at the clothes, but that did not change anything. Under the incitement and curses of the voices, Dr. Gao slowly stopped moving. The expression on his face started to match the faces on his body. His lips split open, one eye was crying, and the other was bleeding. With a maniacal laugh, he charged at the shadow. He attacked indiscriminately. Even if Zhang Ya's black hair was a hindrance, he would not hesitate to tear it apart. Confine, convert, and suppress, a specter with three characteristics at the same time. The shadow used his own body to feed the baby in his chest. He would grow stronger until he reached the peak of his power, and then he would collapse. Li Wan City and the ghost apartment contain the ghost fetus, secret. Even if I cannot regain control of this place, I will destroy this place. Without dodging or retreating, the shadow bent his back and charged at Dr. Gao. The shadow's face was blurring, and the baby's face became clearer. Chen Ge used his yin-yang vision to memorize the shape of the baby's face in his mind. Without any foreplay or preparation, the moment Dr. Gao and the shadow made contact, the battle reached its climax. The word, tragic, was not enough to describe it. They did not seem to know what defense was, they only knew how to attack. The curse morphed into a sharp cone and pierced into Dr. Gao's body. The human faces were pierced through, and screams and laughter came from Dr. Gao's body at the same time. The chains wrapped around him, and he resisted the curse. The blood vessels around Dr. Gao were like blooming red spider lilies. With an indescribable sense of death around him, he grabbed the shadow. The blood around him morphed into chains and curled around the shadow's body. On the ground, the whole roof was dyed red. Chains crawled out from the pool of blood, and they bit at the shadow like hungry pythons. In an instant, hundreds of chains pierced through the shadow's body, piercing through his whole body and fixing him on the roof. What is the smell of being above a red specter? With a wicked smile on his face, Dr. Gao bit at the shadow. His mouth was full of curses. Dr. Gao had gone mad. This red specter was going to swallow the curse one mouthful at a time. The chains represent imprisonment, and you have the power to suppress others. You are very powerful. The baby's mouth was moving, and countless curses burned on the chains. The shadow's body started to melt, and he escaped from the trap that Dr. Gao had set up. Dr. Gao had not undone all the chains. His power made the shadow wary. This time, He finally remembered the name, Society of Strange Tales. His weakness is the baby on his chest. All the curses are protecting the baby. As the onlooker, Chen Ge was the most rational person there. He saw the problem with one glance. It's you again. When they were fighting, the shadow had already closed the distance between him and Chen Ge. He hated Chen Ge to the core. The chains landed on the shadow's body. It was difficult to use the same trick to trap the shadow again. He used layers of curses to protect the baby on his chest. He gave up most of his defense and used a strange method to move forward. He wanted to reach Chen Ge in the shortest amount of time and kill this living person. He did not want to see Chen Ge again. He hated everything about the man, and the desire to destroy filled his mind. I have never harmed you, and I do not know what has happened to you. If there is a chance, I would like to have a good chat with you, but unfortunately, we both understand the danger of each other. Chen Ge stood where he was. Bai Cholan and the woman guarded before him. He studied the shadow's movement seriously. This kind of fast attack while avoiding fatal wounds was something that Chen Ge could learn. They had the same appearance, but the shadow was much better at using his body than Chen Ge. In the past, he only knew how to use brute force, but after this mission, Chen Ge realized the limitations of brute force. He wanted to learn as many skills as he could so that he would be able to escape faster when he was in danger and would not drag everyone down. Standing before the shadow and learning the shadow's skills, it was not that Chen Ge had accepted life and death but because Zhongya was beside him. Zhongya is still the most reliable. They are both red specters, but compared to Dr. Gao and the shadow, Zhongya can be considered the most normal. Her fingers slowly tightened, and lines of black patterns appeared on Zhongya's arms. Pale skin, blood-red coat, and strange black patterns. Zhongya, who had been expressionless, suddenly smiled when she looked at the shadow. This day was especially memorable for her. As a witness, Zhongya wanted to turn her shadow into a doll and keep it for her collection. This was like attending a wedding, turning all the guests into dolls, and then they would be forever happy.